Deep Threat Sports Network. We're back at it again. We're talking about Week 12 review. Week 12 wasn't too crazy, wasn't too calm. It was just kind of a modest weekend. Nothing stood out. It wasn't one of those crazy weekends we've been having, which is what we've been accustomed to. But this week we got me and Bryant. Colin's out hunting. Guys got to do what guys got to do. And can you fault the guy for it? I'd be doing the same. So today you got me and Bryant, but we're still going to bring that quality content. Still going to be great stuff. So just to start off, I'm going to go ahead and shoot it straight on over to Bryant. And Bryant, tell us who we have for Dog of the Week, because that's your spot. That's your segment. That's where you pick who is that top tier guy.
This one's a little bit tough to talk about because it happened against the Mizzou Tigers. But I feel like this was pretty obvious this week. We're going with the South Carolina quarterback, Lenore Sellers. He was 21 of 30 for 353 yards and 5 touchdowns. Also had over 40 rushing yards. Was super dynamic in and out of the pocket, making plays with his legs, extending plays. Probably saved the game there in the fourth quarter, avoiding a tackle or a sack that would have ended their drive and extended the drive, and they won the game. He played outstanding. Only really made one mistake with an interception there in the second quarter. But Lenore Sellers, Dog of the Week here on Deep Threat Sports Network.
Absolutely, man. We talked about those teams like South Carolina. We're going to dive into it here in a little bit, but those are dangerous teams. They can just turn it on, and just like the team can, the players can too. So next, we're going to go straight into our film session. We're going to have a couple games where we review kind of quickly that we just wanted to make sure we mentioned. And we're going to have some that we're going to dive pretty deeply in, because if you guys watch college football over the weekend, you guys know there was some stuff that went down. We lost an undefeated team. Just a lot of stuff went down. Like I said, it wasn't too crazy exciting, but it was like a lot of stuff that's starting to make a difference right now that we're starting to talk about the college football playoff, especially with that new list being revealed recently. I think it was last week. Was it last week?
Yes.
But yeah. So right off the bat, we're gonna go Texas knocking off Arkansas. Brian, what did you see there?
Texas kind of went to Fayetteville and sleptwalked through that game. It was a pretty hectic environment. They packed the stands. But Texas was ahead in the whole game, but Arkansas cut it to 3 there in the fourth quarter. So Texas had to make a play, and they came through when they did. They had a drive to answer that late touchdown for Arkansas to seal the game. Neither team was very efficient, but this time of the year you almost have to escape the games and win them when you can, and that's exactly what Texas did here with the 2010 win on the road in Fayetteville.
Hey, it wasn't pretty, but they got the job done.
Absolutely.
Another team that got the job done was SMU. Boston College came over to SMU, left with the loss, 38-28. SMU was tested in this game. That they had to come up with plays. They had to dig a little deeper. And this is kind of where those teams that aren't quite that caliber team start to kind of cave a little bit here. So, props to them for holding up, still getting the W against Boston College. The defense does need to get things figured out there on that end. We're talking about playoffs now. So, you don't have time to trial and error. It either works or it doesn't. You're going to ride with whatever works.
Absolutely.
Thing that did work for them was Kevin Jennings. Kevin Jennings, solid. 298 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then Brashard Smith crushed it on the ground, 120 yards, 1 touchdown. So they did what they needed to do to win, but they got to clean up things here and there if they want to make a run in the playoffs, because right now I see them in the playoffs for sure. But we'll see the rest of the ACC plays out.
Absolutely.
Let's remember, SMU, I think that would be insane if SMU won the ACC in their first year in the ACC.
That'd be nuts.
Let's talk about Arizona State going to Kansas State. Bryant, what happened in this game? We have been very big on Kansas State.
Kansas State's been playing, not very good the past few weeks, and it definitely hit for sure in this week. They were down 21-0 at the half at home against Arizona State. Avery Johnson was not good, 0 touchdowns and 2 picks. They just played an overall bad game, and they've stacked a few pretty bad games up these past few weeks. So Kansas State, I think, is out of it for any sort of playoff talks, especially now that they're not going to make it in the Big 12 championship. On the other side, Arizona State definitely has a chance now to make it into the Big 12 title game. They will need some losses ahead of them with BYU and or Colorado, but they have a good team. Sam Levitt is playing well. And Cam Skabo is one of the best running backs in the Big 12, if not the best. That dude is great out of the backfield catching passes and running. So people got to start paying attention to Arizona State. They kind of skated by under the radar in the Big 12 this season, and they're now a big threat to make it far and possibly even the Big 12 championship and a possible playoff berth if they win that game. So pay attention to Arizona State.
Man, going from paying attention to somebody, moving forward to no longer paying attention to somebody. I want to talk about Washington State going over to New Mexico, losing 35-38, close game. I mean, their offense played well, 547 yards of offense, but the defense just couldn't get it done. You got to be a complete team if you're going to be a playoff team. Washington State, they would have won, but they'd probably more in a playoff consideration. Now with this loss, they're done. Like, I don't know about you, Brian, but I don't think they have a chance at this point anymore.
No, they're out of the Group 5 talk. I think there's teams that are better and playing better and have better records.
Yeah, I mean, going back to their defense, they gave up 360 yards on the ground.
That was crazy stat.
Like, I don't need. I wish we would have dove a little deeper and did like the individual players, because I want to know who, like, was it 360 yards across 10 players? Was 360 yards?
Like, I was reviewing the stat line. It was like 3 or 4 players had 50 plus rushing yards, including their starting running back and 3 of the backups. I mean, there was that defense for Washington State was not in the backfield at all. 0 sacks, no tackles for loss. It was just straight down their throats the entire game by New Mexico.
Hey, if it's working, keep running the ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Washington State did have some positives. Receiver Kyle Williams had 181 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. So it's pretty impressive for him. So he's probably one of the only people on that team that had a good day.
Mm-hmm.
The next one I want to talk about, going back to the ACC, we got Clemson at Pitt. How did that game pan out? What does that show about Clemson? Like, what does this game look like?
It was very neck and neck all game, but there that fourth quarter late, Cade Klubnik busted out for a 50-yard touchdown run to put them ahead and ended up being the game-winning score. Clemson's sticking around in the ACC, similar to Arizona State that we talked about earlier. They need some losses ahead of them with SMU or Miami to make the title game. But they're a gritty team. They find ways to win. They have had some hiccups this season, but they're in position. They'd like to be a little bit better as far as record's concerned, but this was a big game on the road to go to a pretty good Pitt team and win, especially the way it happened there late. So Clemson got to keep an eye on them still, even though they're not in the driver's seat. They have some good players. It's still Clemson. They got a bunch of good recruits and a bunch of good players on both sides of the ball. So if they can keep it rolling and some dominoes fall ahead of them, they could definitely be in consideration here in the next month or so.
Absolutely. I think the only spot is like SMU has to mess up, because I don't see Miami falling off at this point. They don't have that hard of a schedule to move forward.
I agree.
I think Clemson's just looking for SMU to fall off.
And Clemson definitely has the hardest schedule because they still got to play South Carolina. So,
yeah. And, well, we'll talk about South Carolina in a little bit here. All right. So, next one, we're going to get to the thick of it. This one was it's an interesting game. So we got Oregon showing up to Wisconsin. Oregon, yes, of course, they get the win. They're still number 1 team in the land. But, I mean, it was just, for me, it was just a very odd game. Jordan James had an impressive game.
Mm-hmm.
100-plus yard game, So at this point, you start having them in conversations a little bit more in depth, or still just kind of there. But the Oregon defense, holy smokes, they look good. 6 tackles for loss, 1 interception. They did look like, and I don't want to say sloppy, because I feel like that's like they were terrible.
It was almost like that Texas team. They almost like they were sleepwalking the whole game.
Yeah, like they were just kind of like, they knew what they were doing, but they just weren't doing it to their maximum capacity. Like, they really weren't into this game. I don't know if they thought they had it in the bag. I don't know what happened here, but I mean, even Dylan Gabriel, I've been very high on Dylan Gabriel. He couldn't get much going,
No.
And then threw an interception in the red zone. I mean, Oregon just, Wisconsin was leading at the half, and I was like, hold on, what's going on? Because
they were leading into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, we all know at this point in college football, anything can happen. So I was like, no way, Wisconsin of all teams knocks off Oregon. I mean, what did you see on that end?
I think your analysis is pretty good, Dave. That Oregon still has this. Their bye week's coming up this coming week. They've played 11 straight games. I think that has something to do with it. Obviously, this is their first season in the Big Ten playing on the road on the East Coast, basically. I think that has something to do with it. But they did what they had to do in this game. Their defense stepped up for them, which has kind of been their Achilles heel as far as the team's concerned. Their offense has kind of been leading that team all season, and it was kind of good to see that their defense stepped up when they needed them to. I do really think though that they kind of overlooked Wisconsin. Wisconsin's having an okay season, but I think they were 5-4 entering this game, and Oregon definitely came in, I think, and probably thought they were going to win this game big, and had almost bit them. But that's what good teams do is they find a way to win. Like you mentioned, Jordan James kind of put the team on his back on offense because they couldn't really get the passing game going. So bye week is coming up, the perfect time for Oregon. They got a few more games left in their schedule to stay at the top of the country as far as rankings are concerned. So we'll see what they do.
Absolutely. I mean, just to give you a picture of Oregon's offense this game, when they're normally a high scoring, just Dylan Gabriel making things happen. Atticus Sappington. Do you know who Atticus Sappington is? Is their kicker. Their kicker had 17 points. He was 3 for 3. Like,
Yep.
if you have this kicker, let's say your kicker's terrible, you lose this game. You lose this game to Wisconsin 13-6. I mean, that's just tough. But hey,
Hey, that's a 5-star name too. Atticus Sappington.
this guy needs to go into politics. That I'm voting for Atticus
That,
Sappington.
that's that sounds like a guy that signed the Constitution back in the day.
Exactly. Oh man. All right. Well, we're gonna get into a little bit of a darker space here in a second. Next thing I want to talk about is Mizzou at South Carolina, and I'm just gonna start off because I am a Mizzou fan, but not like you, Brian, where you probably had a Mizzou binky that was the first thing that you probably put in your mouth.
hmm
So for me, from what I've seen from Mizzou, the last couple of years, just getting into college football and all that, this just seemed like Mizzou being Mizzou again. Like they kind of hold on the whole game. They make a huge drive at the end of the game where here we go, like we're gonna win. They make it happen. They get the score, and then they can't finish on the back end. And South Carolina comes in and scores, late in the game to get this game. I mean, I wasn't also impressed with Luther Burden. I mean, I think the last play, that one that I'm talking about, was probably his best one and his only good play.
Absolutely. Yep.
Which we were talking about this guy, softly being like a Heisman guy, like not really in the talk, but like he's good enough to, right? So what did you see, Brian? Is there anything from as a Mizzou fan that frustrated you more? Is there anything you're positive about moving forward?
Actually, I'm pretty positive after this game. Mizzou has definitely come out on the good side of a ton of close games this past year and this year. I think we were 6-0 in one score games in this season and last season. So it was going to come back and bite us at some point, and it definitely did in this game. But we were 14 and a half point favorites on the road against a surging South Carolina team. And we absolutely dominated them on the offensive side of the ball and the line of scrimmage. We've been talking all year about how South Carolina's defensive line is one of the best in the country. And Mizzou had a 150-yard rusher, Nate Noel. We were throwing the ball all over. It was just the one game that we needed the defense to carry us like they have all season, and it did not happen. Like we mentioned earlier, Norris Sellers was our dog of the week, over 350 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. Rocket Sanders was efficient on the ground. But, I don't know. There were some good positives, but I thought we had it sealed when Luther had that touchdown. But the defense kind of let us down there late. And, I wish almost Luther would have fell down at the 1 and we ran more clock out. But you don't think of that in the time, and you score that ball when you can. But, I figured they may have had too much time there at the end. They definitely did. And Lenore Sellers drove right down the field and scored a touchdown with 15 seconds left. So, I thought it was an overall positive game. Mizzou did not play that bad. We could have had a better first half, but the fact that we are playing with the hobbled quarterback, even though Brady Cook played very well in this game, I thought, with
He
all of
threw
his
deep balls.
injuries.
He threw deep balls, and he
Yeah, where was the
connected.
deep ball? Yeah, this was the Brady Cook of the last season. He was throwing it around, throwing it deep, dissecting that defense. But Mizzou's defense let them down this game, and like I mentioned earlier, we're bound to get bit in a close game at some point, and it happened in this game. But credit to South Carolina for pulling it out, and they seriously still do have a chance to make the college football playoff. But it's going to be hard to get in there with 3 losses, but we'll see. Crazier things have happened.
Man, I just for me, I think a big problem was the safeties. They just busted coverages. Like
Yeah,
what?
they were running wide open all game. I don't know what was going on. Got to have some conversation there with Coach Platoon, the defensive coordinator, and try to figure out what happened there.
I will say Drake Heismeyer starting at center
First career start.
and really, I mean, I what was it? I saw a quote somewhere. It was essentially it was like you really didn't see much from him, but like at the center position, like that's what you want. You don't want to be the focus of,
Absolutely.
because if you're the focus of attention, you messed up somehow. As
Yeah,
long as you job, no one really worries about you. And I thought he did well. I think he had one penalty in like the third or fourth quarter.
mhm.
But other than that, you know, that's I mean, a center is a very hard position to just take over right off the bat, especially against a South Carolina team like that that's going to be just on you all night long.
And on the road. Yeah, he's filled right in for Kyler Tollison, who's out for the season with injury. So props to him. He was definitely a bright spot on that offense, as well as many others. Mizzou still has 2 games left, and they're both very winnable games against Mississippi State and Arkansas, so they can still have a good season. I mean, 9-3 by Mizzou standards, judging on history, is very good. So a lot of positives to take from this game. I definitely think they can look at the film and try to tie up some of the loose ends that they had on defense. But we will see. As far as South Carolina, they got to keep it rolling. Like I mentioned earlier, they still got to play Clemson. I think they have a bye game coming up next week. I did not check their schedule, but South Carolina could easily finish 9-3 too and be one of the best three loss teams in the country. So props to them for getting the win, top 25 matchup win at home.
Absolutely. I just think if Mizzou can go into the transfer portal and get a good quarterback, we can
Absolutely.
up going. We get somebody that's a proven winner. Well, as a Mizzou fan, is there anybody that you would have in mind at this moment that you would like, or like one or two options that you would
I've
like?
thought about it. I haven't really dug into it too much. I definitely think we're going to chase a quarterback in the portal with Brady leaving and not much experience to fill behind him. Um, I don't really know for sure. I'd have to dig into it, but somebody maybe in a better group of 5 team or a possible like power 4 that just didn't really quite pan out or something like that. I don't know. I haven't dug into it too much. We're gonna have to find somebody with some experience at winning football games.
Hey, Colin would love to have Indiana's quarterback.
Well, yeah, but I doubt he's leaving Indiana. But that'd be
Now,
perfect. That'd be top of the list if we could.
Indiana will put up the money because they are winning. They
Hmm.
will. Wow,
Personally, honestly, if it'd be kind of cool if we could get like Wigman from A&M.
Connor Wegman. I
I
could see that.
seriously could be a possibility. I don't know. That'd be ideal, but I think it'd probably be more like somebody from like a Florida State type team that didn't have quite the season they wanted, but still is a good quarterback. Something like that. It is
Uh,
generally how Mizzou falls as far as quarterbacks in the transfer portal. We're not going to go out there and get A1, grade A, ready to start players unless we pay them an exorbitant amount of money. So
hey,
we will see.
the fans just have to start contributing to that NIL fund. That's all I know.
Uh-huh.
But next game I want to talk about is one that was controversial. Wasn't that great of a game? It had some funny moments for sure. Kansas going over to BYU and knocking off BYU. BYU no longer undefeated. I think they were number 6 team in the country last week.
Yep.
How good are they now at this point? I mean, with how they've got knocked off by Kansas. Not nothing against Kansas, but what does that do for their stock in this playoffs?
You know, it hurts them as far as national spotlight on them is concerned, but they're still in the driver's seat in the Big 12. They're probably definitely going to be in that title game. So if they win that, they're still in the playoffs. But they're definitely not a shoe in to get in as an at large, even if they lose that game anymore. So this was a bad loss for them. They've usually been very good at home in Provo, but Kansas has been surging as of late, and they came in and beat the brakes off of BYU. Jalen Daniels was efficient. In the passing and both with his legs. BYU had a chance to get it close there at the end, but Kansas stopped them. BYU just could not get anything going on offense. They've been pretty dynamic all season, but this game they just lost it. I don't know if it was something that Kansas threw at them that was different, but BYU kind of had to step back in this game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas run back Devin Neal, 52 yards, 2 touchdowns. But I will say one of those touchdowns I
It
get to
was
probably.
bad special teams play. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas punts the ball. They're running, hits the guy. I don't know if it was a helmet, the shoulder. Point is, it hits him in the head. He's not even aware. Ball comes back. BYU player dives for it to try to catch it. It hits him on the helmet. It bounces, and I think Kansas gets the ball at like the 5 yard line.
Yep. Touch, and
And
they score a touchdown immediately.
at that point, you just run it really fast, and you know it is what it is. I mean, what are the odds of something like that happening? I don't even think something like that has ever happened. But Jake Retzlaff, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, not good, not bad, but like not what BYU needed in this game. But yeah, I mean, Kansas, props to them for stopping that final drive because
They got Kansas has a 3-game winning streak.
do they really?
Yeah, and they beat Iowa State last week, and then the week before that, I can't remember who they beat, but they've won 3 in a row after starting like 1-6.
These are two good wins. Very,
Absolutely.
very good.
And we've been talking all year about BYU playing with fire. They've had a lot of close games, and this is finally one that came up and bit them. So luckily, they're still kind of in the driver's seat with having the chance to play for that automatic bid with the Big 12 title. So they still have they still can control their destiny, but this definitely makes it harder. They have no room for error.
Absolutely. Ooh, the next game we're going to talk about, this one has huge playoff implications. Huge. I mean, just I think everybody that was involved with decision making, both in the SEC, for the playoffs, at the end of this game, just probably had to take a little leave or something for the migraine because they know how much it's going to shake things up. Tennessee going to Georgia and losing 31-17. I mean, the Georgia offense was firing on all cylinders. I mean, they had
Absolutely.
going on. Nico, on the other hand, for Tennessee, I mean, his lowest completion percentage of the season, he was 60.6% completion, 20 for 33, 167 yards, and that was pretty much it. No touchdown, no interceptions. I guess he didn't. I guess he didn't hurt the team, but he also sure as heck didn't help the team. So this makes the playoff interesting. Brian, what did you see in this game?
I definitely think this wasn't a game that Tennessee lost. I think Georgia just beat them. You know what I mean? Like this wasn't a Tennessee shooting themselves in the foot. Georgia did what they had to do on defense. They took the ball out of Dylan Sampson's hand and made Nico try to win the game for Tennessee, and it worked out for them. The Georgia defense was in the backfield all game. Like I mentioned, did not let Dylan Sampson get going and forced Nico to make plays through the air. And it was pretty close in the first half, but Georgia pulled through in the second half. This is probably the best that Carson Beck has looked on offense for Georgia all season. They were getting ETN going on the ground as
No
well.
turn
And
for one.
no turnovers for once. But then almost looked like Brock Bowers is back on that team with Oscar Delp. I mean, 2 touchdowns, catching the ball over the field. It was crazy. I mean, he looked really good. He was
On
he
only
was there
four,
when he only
which
four
is
receptions, but they were all big time receptions and 2 touchdowns. So Carson Beck was slinging the ball this game. This is a welcome sight for Georgia fans, and definitely, like you said, mentioned makes the playoffs very interesting now that Tennessee has lost, and there's a bunch of teams in the SEC with 2 losses now. So it's going to be interesting down the stretch in this conference. But I definitely think Georgia is surging in the right direction, and Tennessee's kind of stuck in the mud. It seems like.
yeah, this looks like the Georgia teams we know. Like they come in here and they were just clinical in every aspect. Chaz Chambliss, he can get to the quarterback. I mean, he has 4.5 sacks on the month. That's just ridiculous. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, your point, Carson Beck was really good, and he also wasn't. Because I feel like in college football and just sports in general, we always see like you lean more one way than the other, whether it's a particular player, a particular side of the field. In this game, he had 5 players over 50 receiving yards. So he was evenly distributing the ball, and maybe that's why he looked good. Maybe he wasn't trying to do too much. Uh,
Absolutely. I feel like they were very, what's the word? They were very efficient on offense, getting the ball in multiple people's hands and keeping Tennessee's defense on their toes. So this was a very good game for Georgia. And I think you're exactly right when you said this looked like Georgia teams of the past. It just absolutely controlled every aspect of the game, even when they were playing a bit higher ranked team at home. So credit to Georgia and Kirby Smart for riding the ship in the right time of the season and surging towards a possible playoff berth.
Absolutely. I think you George. it's going to be hard for me to if I don't see Georgia in the playoffs. I'm not even a Georgia fan. I would be pretty upset about that.
Yeah, we'll
But
see what the playoff rankings come. I think they come out tonight or tomorrow, but I definitely think they will be in the top 12 now for sure.
well, one team that won't be in that top 12, I'm going to is LSU. LSU goes to Florida. Billy Napier and them Gators chomped down and knocked them off. This was the first LSU win since 2018. So this is the first time that Florida has actually beat LSU. DJ Lagway, I mean, darn good game for him. 226 yards, 13 for 26 completion. I mean, that Florida defensive line was just in control in the trenches. When LSU's O line is supposed to be very highly touted, like everyone talks about LSU's offensive line, but did Florida's defensive line just get really good all of a sudden, or was LSU really not that good on the offensive line, Brian?
I don't know, man. LSU's just been reeling as of late. They've lost two of their last three games. Coach Kelly's just pointing fingers to everybody on the sideline but himself, yelling at his players. They're just in shambles right now, and it definitely showed in this game. They did not look prepared on either side of the football. Lagway pretty much could do whatever he wanted, even though this was his first game back from an injury. You'd think they'd be prepared for either quarterback, especially Lagway, since Graham Mertz is out for the season. So they just not LSU did not look prepared. And you're exactly right. They got dominated in the trenches on both sides of the ball. The Florida defensive line was in the backfield all game. LSU could not get the run going, which is about the only thing they can do to be efficient this season is getting the ball going on the ground, opening up the pass for Nussmeier. And so Nussmeier was sacked 7 times, had to try to make plays with his legs, and it just wasn't happening. Couldn't find open receivers. This is honestly a pretty dominant game from Florida, which is probably the best they've looked all season, in my opinion.
Hey, good thing they didn't fire Billy Napier. But
Absolutely. But on the LSU side, you thinking Blake Baker, the defensive coordinator, is kind of regretting his decision and leaving Mizzou now?
yeah, exactly. I mean,
He might be on the hot seat.
I would have. I mean, obviously, I'm sure there was a lot more money at LSU than there is at Columbia, Missouri.
No, it was only another 300,000 a year.
Man, that's like three or four
That's a
times.
lot. That is a lot for an assistant coach, but he was like the fourth highest paid in Columbia, and now he's the highest paid. But when you get paid all that money, you gotta back it up, and he's definitely
I mean,
not backing it up.
and this is probably because I don't make that kind of money, but I'm like, I feel like after a 500 grand a year, at that point, you go wherever you just want to be. Like, you're not going for the money, like you're just going where you want to be. But hey, maybe he'll. I don't know, because LSU. I mean, one touchdown in the last two games, Brian. Not
Yeah,
like in a quarter. Like in the last two games, you scored one touchdown. I mean, Garrett
yeah,
Nussmeier. Garrett
they're
Nussmeier. Everybody talked about him at the beginning.
Colin had him on his Heisman thing earlier on in the season.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah,
That's
so I mean,
today.
we give all the shit to LSU's defense, but their offense is definitely not helping out whatsoever these past 3 or 4 games. So, like I mentioned, LSU's is kind of in shambles right now, and I don't know what's going to have to fall for them to get back on track. But they're going to play in a bowl game this year, but any sort of playoff or anything meaningful in the end of the season is off the table for them.
Yeah, I mean, Florida at this point just went out and have fun. Have fun.
Yeah,
Go to
Billy. They already know Billy Napier is back for next season, so let's just ball out and try to win as many games as we can.
hey, they got nothing to lose. It's
They
almost
can they can get to 6 wins now and be bowl eligible. So I think that's their goal for them in the rest of the season, and just try to keep DJ Lagway healthy and see what he can do and look forward into next season.
absolutely. But that's going to wrap it up for a game review. I know that we normally give you guys another episode with the Heisman, with our top 12. But what we're going to do this week is I mean, it's pretty obvious. I've been right from week 1, week 0, week -10. Hot Travis favorite right now. And I personally don't think he's a number one. I still think Cam Ward is a number one. But Travis Hunter is, let's be real, he probably just has more media hype, and that's why he's the favorite.
Absolutely.
He is playing good though. It was funny. Brian actually texted me mid game and was like, "Oh, there goes Travis Hunter's Heisman performance," and then he turned around and has an insane interception.
Yeah, it was crazy. I looked earlier. He's like minus 350 to win the Heisman now. Second's Genty, and third is Cam Ward. So we don't want to dive into it too deep because it's been kind of the same three guys for about a month now. But it seems like Travis Hunter has kind of pulled ahead in the Heisman race. But you never know what could happen. I just think he's in the driver's seat, and I think it's his to lose at this point. So we will definitely see what happens, though. Cam Ward could definitely come back, and if Genty has a crazy last few games and makes some noise in the playoff, he could definitely be there too. So it'll be interesting. But like I mentioned, I think Travis Hunter is definitely in the driver's seat for the Heisman Trophy this year.
Absolutely. But hey, don't be surprised if we drop you a top 12 through our social medias in the form of just our list. Since we aren't able to get it to you this week, we may even just drop you our top 12 later this week onto our social media. So if you don't already follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the medias, all the socials, make sure you follow us and keep up to date with our most recent things that we're providing to you, whether it be our top 12, whether it be our Heisman list. Hey, it might even be another giveaway. We've already had a couple people win the tumbler. So if you like free things, I think most people do. Keep an eye. Like I said, follow all of our social medias. Keep listening to us on Spotify. Keep listening to us on YouTube. And keep hanging in there. We appreciate all you guys that are always here with us. You don't miss out on an episode. And hey, if you do miss out on one or two, come back afterwards. From time to time, I won't be here. From time to time, Brian won't be here. From time to time, Colin won't be here. So just stay with us, stay tuned, and we're going to continue to bring quality content and keep you guys updated on everything there is college football. Brian, what do you got for him?
No, I think we're good. That was a good episode. There was a lot to talk about this week. We tried to get it in as best we could. There's some big games coming up in week 13, so we'll review that later on in the week. Like Dave said, stick with us, and I hope you guys are enjoying the episodes and keep listening and supporting the show. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, it wouldn't be Deep Threat Sports Network if we didn't end the episode by saying peace.
Peace.